I think one of the most surprising storylines of the NFL season so far is people talking about how bad the Denver Broncos have been offensively to start the 2022 season. Going into this year, it seemed that the combination of bringing in an offensive guru head coach in Nathaniel Hackett from the Packers and a really good quarterback in Russell Wilson were the missing pieces to their otherwise championship roster. But they came out and suffered a shocking upset loss to the Seahawks in a Monday night primetime game, and followed it up by squeaking out an ugly win over the Houston Texans. And in that Texans game, they appeared to try and let Russ cook, but the meal he was serving up was looking something like this, with his 14 of 31, one touchdown, one interception performance. And there were also several head-scratching coaching decisions that more than likely left a lot of points on the board in all of their games so far. But I'm here to tell you, it's not as bad as you think. The overwhelming blame has solely been placed on Hackett and Wilson, and it seems so far that they are both just bad. But in reality, it's actually a lot of little things stacked up together to make them look like an incompetent offense that can't score points. But when I went back and watched the games with a lot of focus to see what was actually the problem, they're a lot closer than people think. And I think there are some adjustments and fine-tuning that they can do that I want to share with you guys. So in today's video, we'll be talking about what's gone wrong with this Broncos offense. We'll cover what Nathaniel Hackett has done wrong to already be seen as in the hot seat among Broncos fans so far, how Hackett's recipes need to be more attuned for Shuff Russell Wilson so we can cook, but at the same time making Russ cook less and letting Javonte Williams eat. And they need to let him eat until they can figure out what their identity in the passing game is, and I don't think it'll take them long because I think we have a solution for that already that we're obviously going to cover. And I think this is why it's way too soon to call it curtains for Hackett and Wilson like a lot of people are trying to. It's just not clicking right away like we thought it might. And we'll obviously look and break down some film to show you what we're talking about, but there's a lot to discuss, so let's get right into it. And this video is going to be chaptered, so if you're more interested in the film, you're more than welcome to skip to that, but there is some context that needs to be talked about beforehand. I think we need to talk about and understand the concept of how important and sometimes how overlooked good coaching in the NFL really is, because Hackett has had a pretty rough start to his head coaching career. And the result has been not scoring points and losing games. But the problem is actually much smaller than the result makes it seem. They are things that are definitely fixable, but will be cause for concern if that doesn't happen soon. Like how in both games so far, the Broncos have been knocking on the doorstep in the red zone several times and have often been walking away with 0 or at best 3 points. And touchdowns are obviously worth more points than field goals, so when you have the talent and the means to score them and you're simply not, there's something off. Hackett seems to love to go shotgun at the 1-inch line, which isn't as uncommon as you might think, but it is weird when you have a bowling ball of a running back who's built perfectly for situations like this. And some other obvious mishaps on the field that are clearly a direct result of bad or unprepared coaching that I'm sure you've seen so far, but we'll quickly go over them. They've had multiple delay of game penalties in both games, which is inexcusable when one of them is a home game. They've had several false start penalties, which is another simple sign of undisciplined football, and both of these things should and could be cleaned up in practice in the offseason. And in the Texans game, Hackett's had some questionable play calling, like when he dialed up a speed option with their backup tight end instead of doing, well, anything else. They got another delay of game the very next play, which forced them out of field goal range, making them punt it away, again coming away with no points. Which, looking back on it now, would have only been a 58-yard attempt in Mile High where the ball travels further, so they'll attempt a 64-yarder but not 58? I'm even more confused now. But the biggest mistake Hackett has so far, and it's going to lead us into watching our film for today, is for whatever reason, Russell Wilson hasn't been able to click offensively yet like we know he can. And I don't think Hackett is calling plays to put Russell in situations where he can play at his best. But let's hop into some film to show you what I mean and how the Broncos can start to turn things around moving forward with a long season ahead of them. And I was gonna cover several games in this video, but after I got done watching the Texans game, there is everything in this game to show every point I wanted to make. So to not cherry pick games to make a certain point, I felt like it would be more impactful to show you how these problems and solutions present themselves within a 60-minute span of game time. And the first point is, it's an everyone problem. So when everyone talks about Russ's numbers or his shortcomings, what we don't talk about is all of the drops. There's obviously more throughout all of the games, but we saw our fair share in this game alone. It's hard enough to dial up the right play, block everything well, find the right read, and deliver an accurate ball. That's why drops are so devastating. Penalties and drops are drive killers, and the Broncos have had both in abundance so far. Even on a play like this, what can you ask for when you dial up a really good play? This ball literally hits his receiver in the helmet. Even Javonte Williams, who we're going to talk about highly later, and again, everyone needs to hold their blame. And the next point is, it just doesn't feel like Russell Wilson is quite comfortable in this offensive system yet. I mean, he did spend 10 years in Seattle, and I think the exception is more so Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady coming into a new system year one with a new team and having instant success. But it becomes clear on a play like this where he just doesn't trust his reads, doesn't trust his progression, and he's going to pass up a wide open receiver in the flats to take a boundary shot on a 2nd and 11 play. So whereas Russell Wilson, it seems like in Seattle, this would have been completed 10 times out of 10. Just doesn't look like he quite trusts his reads yet, or maybe doesn't fully understand the offense. And again, he's going to look to the top of your screen, and as this play goes on, he sees the corner start to bite on the seam. He's looking at this curl route at the top of your screen, but decides to go off of it, decides to hold on to the ball, and he takes a pretty bad sack. And when we get the alternate angle, we see how he's locked in. He looks ready to throw it, and he just can't quite pull the trigger, and this slight hesitation to move on leads to another negative play, which is another drive stalling decision. And that's really the key. Playing in an NFL offense is very hard, so any slight hesitation or unfamiliarity might lead into some awkward looking plays. But the next glaring problem on this Broncos team is how they cannot score in the red zone. They're 0 for 6 so far, and on this drive, they're at the 2-yard line. They had a 1st and goal. They threw it up to Courtland Sutton. He caught it, but he was out of bounds. They line up in the exact same formation. This is now 2nd and goal. They're going to go to the right same play. Derek Stingley's there to break it up. Now again, 2 plays on the 2-yard line, and you haven't given Javonte Williams a try. And now we have 3rd and goal, and they line up in shotgun. Are they going to spread it out to give it to Javonte? No. They go to pass it. It gets tipped. It gets caught, but again, out of bounds. And now they're settling for another field goal when they had 3 attempts from the 2-yard line. And the next thing we need to talk about, if you didn't skip right to the film analysis, we did talk earlier how Nathaniel Hackett isn't calling the plays that allows Russell Wilson to do what he does best. He seemed to have just brought his offense over from Green Bay, and he's calling this offense like he still has Aaron Rodgers. They call a lot of tight split receiver formations, which is good for a lot of things, and it's good for throwing the ball over the middle. A lot of mesh concepts, a lot of bunch, a lot of stretching vertically and hitting it over the middle of the field. And so if we look at these screenshots, look at how tight and compacted all of these offensive play callings are. But let's take a look at Russell Wilson's heat chart to see what he actually likes to do with the ball. And if you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at, he has some very clear tendencies to not throw it over the middle of the field, and he loves to and is very good at taking boundary shots and throwing outside of the numbers. So when the Broncos have had success in the passing game, like I'm going to show you here in a second, it's when they spread things out, when they get one high, and Russell Wilson is highly accurate with these outside shots. But Nathaniel Hackett has only continued to call formations that doesn't allow Russell Wilson to take these outside shots with all these tight split receiver sets. And so outside of all the drops that we saw earlier that are drive killers and all of the formations that we saw where Russell Wilson looked out of place and uncomfortable in the offense with all these tight split sets, let's see in this Texas game where Russell Wilson had a lot of success, and look at this, spread out on the field where he's allowed to take these boundary shots, where he is highly accurate with the ball and he can just pick apart the defense. And we're going to see Courtland Sutton a lot. When Courtland Sutton split out and he has one-on-one coverage, Russell Wilson almost exclusively exclusively was looking for him, and they converted a lot. Out of his 14 completions, most of them went to Courtland Sutton, and most of them when he was split out wide. I don't know why Nathaniel Hackett, and this is why I don't think it's as big of a deal as people think, because these are just the fine-tune adjustments that they have to make. If they can stop getting offensive penalties, no false starts, no delay of games, and they can start to call plays that allow Russell Wilson to be successful like he was in Seattle and run a lot of the same concepts and not just try and copy all the success he had with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, I think this offense is going to look a lot better. But what we really need to get into is the thumbnail of the video and the thing I just don't understand why they're going away from, and that is the running game that looks dominant. In the first game, Javonte Williams only had 7 carries and was averaging over 6 yards a carry. He got more touches in the second game with 15 and an impressive 5+ yards per carry. And every time he seemed to get the ball, it was 5, 6, 7 yards, just barreling forward, just a bowling ball falling forward for extra yards. And every time he'd have a successful run, they'd go right back to the passing game and right back into those tight split sets to have a drive killing either sack, incompletion, or drop. I just can't imagine why they would go away from this ground game when they were having so much success with it. So I know they're trying to let Russ cook, and so I do think there's a lot of things they can do that will make Russell Wilson look like a much better quarterback, and I think that is on Nathaniel Hackett's part. But why would you ever go away from this ground game? It's clear to me that the Broncos have had so much success with the running game, and they continued to go away from it. If they can get each of these guys 15 carries a game and Russell Wilson only throws it 20 times a game, I don't think people are going to care about the stat sheet, because at the end of the day, they're only going to care about wins and losses. But after all of that, I saved one full drive for you guys that I want to break down that encapsulates everything we've covered in this video so far, where they have success and where they struggled, and that is their drive against the Texans right before half, and I'm going to show you every single play. We're going to start out with a run to Javonte Williams, and look, the bowling ball falls forward for 5 yards, but Melvin Gordon can get his too. They go right back to the ground game, and they have another huge run. And now we have a 1st and 10, and guess again, they're going to go back to the run game where it looks like they have another successful run, but the first thing we saw, they have a holding penalty, which does seem like a drive-killing penalty, but again, they go for their 4th straight long run, and look at that, they have success, almost like they're a good running team, but we need to pick up the pace a little bit. They spread it out where Russell Wilson has success. They take a boundary shot to Courtland Sutton, highly successful, but now we're getting into the red zone. 1st and goal, what are they going to do? They're going to pass it. Incomplete pass. What they should have been doing this entire time on 2nd and goal, they run it from the 5-yard line and get to the 1-inch line. Now we can just punch it in, right? No. They go shotgun, they decide to throw it. Russell Wilson has to escape the pocket, throw it away, and they go away taking a field goal before the half. This encapsulates everything we've been talking about, what they done good, the penalties that kill the drives, and then not being able to score when they get to the goal line. So the Broncos have looked bad on offense. On the scoreboard at least. But when Russ is in situations where he can thrive, they go to the run game. From the 20 to 20-yard line, they have looked great. But drops, penalties, and a complete neglect for the run game in the red zone is all of the fine-tune adjustments they need to make that will allow them to put up 30+ points a game. I know they can do it because they have the means and the talent to do so. And as bad as I wanted to overreact and rip them to shreds coming into this film breakdown, the more and more I was convinced that they are much closer than I ever could have imagined from being a top offense in the league. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like this video if you like videos like these. Comment down below what you think about this Denver Broncos offense and some of the adjustments they need to make, something I missed or what you agree with. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy daily NFL content. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to be all I have for you today, but as always, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace!